On this episode of One at One Live, you're going to meet a pastor who's quad vocational and he compares preachers to comedians. I hope that you'll find today's interview of value. You'll go ahead and subscribe or like our channel or our page and click that little bell, that notification bell, so it reminds you when we have new content that's posted because you'll enjoy it. So stay tuned for today's One at One Live. Welcome to One at One Live. Today, I have joining me Pastor Derwin Davis from Pleasant View Baptist Church in Covington. Pastor Derwin, we are so glad to have you joining us today.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks so much for the invite, Dr. Bobby Gilstrap.
Well, I want to hear your story, and I'm excited for our viewers to be able to hear some of what's going on. You were in what we would call a revitalization type of a church, a restart, I guess is what you'd kind of call it. Just to give a little nutshell of history, the church was restarted basically by another pastor back in 2012. And that was when our foundation came alongside you, and you guys actually received a $25,000 grant to be able to help in that process. Well, about 4 years ago, that pastor left and you came on board. So let me stop the story there and throw it back over to you. And Pastor Derwin, give us just a little bit of a nutshell view of what it's like right now as you guys have been trying to continue this revitalization, restarting process.
Well, awesome. You know, I've always said that Pleasant View in our history, we have been pastors in the vineyard who have had a baton mentality, where we've passed the baton to continue the work of the Lord. And especially in times like this, it's been amazing because due to the pandemic, we had to enter into another revitalization effort. And it has caused us to really do some things with technology and digital footprint that has caused us to do ministry now across the nation. And individuals are joining into Pleasant View from various locations like Detroit, Michigan, and South Carolina, and Virginia, and some of Jacksonville, Florida. So we've really had to focus on from being a family church, started over, 168 years ago, to now being a church serving families. And now in this time, in 21st century, a church that's serving families across the nation.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get you to unpack a little bit more and get into what you've just been saying a little bit. I'm just going to confess for myself, you are one of the funnest guys as far as some of your live streams. That's not all, and you do a great job teaching and preaching, but I've caught several of your live streams where you're doing Bible studies and that kind of thing, and I've told a number of people, you need to look at Pastor Derwin Davis. And so I want you to kind of unpack that just a little bit. In fact, those who are watching this on YouTube, we're streaming it both on YouTube and Facebook, but we'll put in the description on our YouTube description a link over to your site so people can maybe tune in and watch sometime. But unpack for me just a little bit about this literally worldwide impact that you've started having, because you've had hundreds and hundreds of people that have connected far beyond the walls of your church.
Exactly. We're in a time now where technology used to be considered an additional sanctuary. Now technology is a necessary sanctuary. In fact, it's the main sanctuary, especially with what we're doing here. We've been able to invest in technology, and it's allowed us to reach places and not spend the traditional expenses that you have to in modeling or building a building and all those kind of things. But the biggest thing is learning how to develop a team and build it with excellence. And it's interesting that you said that some of the things are comedic. My wife and the staff and people tell me I'm funny all the time. One of the things I love to do in my own time is I watch comedians because comedians are some of the brilliant thinkers. But that model is just simply out of telling people God's truth. But sometimes truth hurts. So a laugh allows individuals to take truth in, reflect, and apply it. And I believe that serving God can be fun, and serving God should be fun where you can enjoy fun with your family. So I'm glad that we're being a blessing, but we must do, Jesus told us to go to Judea, Samaria, and othermost parts of the world. Well, We can do that so much easily through technology, and this is the time that we need to do technology.
It's interesting that you mentioned about the comedians. I know when I was serving in Michigan we were there for 16 years, but we had a church planting catalyst who decided to make a connection with a local comedy club. And he took some church planters to that comedy club, and this comedian trained them in all of the ins and outs of being a comedian. Of course, there were a bunch of preachers, and so they were only half funny, but it was really great because all the things a comedian does really is helpful because they're communicators.
Absolutely.
And so they talked about the rhythm and, all of, reading
Absolutely.
the room and, all that kind of stuff. And I guess that's kind of maybe a little bit of the performance side of what a pastor does. You're not intended to be a comedian, but, hey, we ought to have fun in church. We
Absolutely.
ought to have fun doing what we're doing.
And the biggest thing is out of that is just learning how to communicate truth. We're in an environment where individuals have their own ideologies, their own way of thinking, and so Jesus said that we need to take on His thoughts. For His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not His ways. His ways are not our ways. So in presenting truth, it makes it so much easier when we can bring truth in a real, relevant, and sometimes funny way that people can technically take it in and not be offended by it. So I'm a strong a proponent of learning how to be improvisational. That's my musician side, but making sure that you stay with the truth, and that's huge because truth is what individuals are building their lives on. In Jesus Christ, He says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life."
Yeah, you don't want them building it on the false hope that they find in lots of other places. You just don't want to do like a pastor friend of mine I had years ago. He always thought that you had to have a joke at the beginning of the sermon. So I've heard him tell some of the craziest, sometimes not even funny jokes at the beginning, and then it have absolutely nothing to do with the sermon at all. I mean, he just thought you had to have a funny joke at the beginning, and yeah, that's not
No,
really what we
as
do.
they say,
So, hey,
good
look,
meat makes its
as
own
a
flavor.
yeah, as a pastor, you've bound to had a number of unusual things. We've already talked about things that have happened relative to the pandemic, and just having to expand as far as technology. You've been there for 4 years. I mean, has there been anything kind of unusual that you've experienced there, even as a pastor, even beyond the pandemic?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that's been unusual is coming into Pleasant View. The major demographic of our church was primarily female, and the Lord started dealing with me about pastoring men and reaching out to men, and in a unique effort and strategies of praying about these things, was starting to implement some things with men, but it didn't seem like we had traction. But the Lord reminded me of Exodus chapter 12 and how He told Moses to tell every man to take a lamb, to slay that lamb for his own home, and put the lamb upon the doorposts and the lintels. And that's where I saw that a man is the pastor of his home. And what happened is one Sunday was preaching, and we did the altar call. A young lady, young girl, maybe around third or fourth grade age, she came down to give her life to Jesus Christ, and she was pulling her father's hand. And the father got down and told me, my daughter's giving her life to Jesus Christ during the sermon, and she wants to be baptized. And that's when the Lord told me to let that father know, you are going to baptize your daughter because you're the pastor of your family. And what ended up happening is the whole family decided to be baptized by the father. The wife was even rebaptized by her husband and all of the daughters. And it was an amazing, beautiful thing. And at that time, it just like God just allowed men to start gravitating towards Pleasant View. An entire family start coming. And it was an amazing thing. And that's been something I've held my guns to, that I believe that fathers should lead their families to the Lord, and it's an honor to baptize their family when they give their life to Jesus Christ, and so that's been an amazing thing, and it's just been wonderful.
Yeah, one of the most exciting things I think any pastor does is baptize. Tell me a little bit about your move toward what you just described about the fathers, baptizing the kids and stuff. You told me earlier about this one particular father came with the daughter, and then you just mentioned about the whole family then gravitating. How how has this emphasis really made a huge difference more than what you've just described?
Well, it's called calls a deeper love for God and a deeper focus on I need to lead my family. And that is also caused what I call a great relationship with pastor and different men in our church. And one of the common things that I've gotten from over the last few years of being the pastor of Pleasant View is that men have told me I never imagined I would be this close with my pastor. And the difference of this is that sometimes we can, as pastors, go through burnout. Everyone is calling, everyone is pulling on us. But when we raise up men to be the pastors of their family, it's men that's going to do ministry, going to go that's going to work in ministry with you, that's going to lead their families, that will pray for their families, and you as a pastor, you get to come alongside them and help their family reach their goals and their passion and their purpose in Christ, and it's a wonderful thing. I've seen it close with me with my own brother-in-law, how things took off in his life, and seeing other men in the church, some that came from afar, some that just that I knew, and it's really synergized. Where when I first started pastoring Pleasant View, there was about 10% of men in the church. Now we're about 60-40, where there's 40% men, and so we've seen roughly over a 30% increase of men actively engaged with their families. And most of the men that have come, they're leading their families. So it's amazing. It's simply amazing.
Let me shift gears just a little bit. You're one of the churches that we've helped, and it's the number is much smaller that we've helped in revitalization, restart kind of thing. But you're kind of wired for the church planting. You actually planted a church in Stone Mountain, and you came to Pleasant View from having planted before. Talk to me a little bit about the similarities, about the kind of skill set, the tools that you feel like God has given you to help at Pleasant View now, but actually helped you as you were planting. And then just talk a little bit about how that's connected. You've seen that connection with like a New Work Foundation, like what we do in trying to help resource new churches. How valuable that is, having looked at it both from that perspective of a church planter and now in a church that we're helping revitalize.
Awesome. So I planted my first church, and planted one church in 2008, Life Restoration Christian Center. And church planting was exciting. It's a lot of boots on the ground. Church planting is work. Church planting takes creativity, because sometimes you don't have the resources, so you need to be creative. Church planting takes tenacity. You got to have guts. You learn a lot of skills, administration, pastoring, pastoral care, learning how to sometimes do carpentry. It's a lot of things of just the grit of being able to say, we're going to push out what God has given us. And in coming to Pleasant View, especially in different seasons, you need those skill sets that you know how to roll up your sleeve and get to work, because ministry is work. But one thing that I'm thankful that Pleasant View has also given me the opportunity to learn how to not just plant and plow ground and plant seed and grow, but sometimes how to transition. Because I think sometimes in church planting, we go into an area and we till up the ground and we just plant new seed for a new crop. But in transitioning, what I've learned in Pleasant View is that you have to learn how to plant new crops while not killing the crops that are there, but pruning and fertilizing and nourishing that, where it becomes one cohesive garden. And so I'm a church planter. I make no apologies about it. I'm gonna roll up my sleeves, get in there, let's get it done. And I'm thankful that I've learned something from both sides. And it has been helpful, because there's times that we're in a church of 168 years, that you have to be willing to try and do something new to go further. God told David that he was going to create in him a clean heart and renew with him in the right spirit. Sometimes you need God to create something new, and that's that church planter side and side of something that may be even established. And I'm so excited about New Works Foundation. One, because when I was a church planter, I didn't know anything like this existed. I didn't know there was support. I didn't know there were systems. I didn't know that there were coaches. I didn't know that there were other church planter pastors who were technically a year or two out who could give you strategies, help you avoid making mistakes by using their wisdom, helping you deal with the ups and downs and the emotions and the family toils and struggles that takes place with church planting. And so when I found out about New Work Foundation, I was amazed as a church planter. And then once I knew that they had helped Pleasant View in a revitalization effort with the previous pastor, I wanted to do everything I could as the current pastor to make sure that we support New Works Foundation, because a lot of people come to Christ through new churches. A lot of people are able to hear the gospel the way they need to hear it through revitalization efforts. And so I'm forever thankful to New Works Foundations. It is amazing, and as a pastor and as a person, I support it wholeheartedly with time, talent, finances, and resources. So I'm thankful for New Works Foundation.
Let me ask you one more thing. I started to say, it sounds a little funny. I started to say you're an oddball, but that didn't really come out the way I was thinking.
But that's, I mean, I love it. Listen, my fingerprint
here's
proves
what,
it. My fingerprint proves it. Okay.
Well, what I was trying to get to is you are actually not as odd now as what we used to be. And what I'm getting at is you're bivocational. I was bivocational most of my ministry. The churches I helped plant, I was bivocational when I was doing it. I only pastored one church that I was considered what they'd call fully funded. But tell us a little bit about your bivocation, your co-vocation, as some call it now, and unpack a little bit of that, because there's some unusual kind of pressures and unusual things that you have to deal with, that somebody who's just doing nothing but their church, whether it be a church plant or pastoring a church, it's very different. So unpack that just a little bit. And that's what I meant by you're a little bit of an oddball, because you're not fully funded as a church pastor at this point.
So I'm definitely bivocational. Sometimes I really call it quad vocational, because I'm a school teacher. I'm a choral music educator. I've been a musician literally since the age of 10, working for different churches and playing different gigs and different type of things like that. So that's always been a part of my life, where I've worked musically either in the school system or either inside other musical endeavors. Also, counseling has kind of pastoral counseling, marriage counseling has picked up, and different just consultant things. So that's been a life in itself. And then pastoring, it's literally like having 2 to 3 full-time jobs going at one time. So I have learned that it takes it takes prayer. I'm blessed that I don't do anything that I don't love, and I don't feel that I'm not called to. I think that's a terrible thing, to do something that you're not called to, because you won't have God's grace on your life. But being a bivocational pastor, it is a unique calling. It is a very unique calling. But I'm thankful for it. I believe that some people are called to be bivocational pastors, so that you can do the work of the ministry, and that your family doesn't have to suffer financially by you doing ministry, and vice versa, that you don't have to absorb all of the ministry funds, so that you can have resources to do ministry. But you got to be conscious of your time, your endeavors, and the biggest word is teams, 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 teams. When you do not have a team, your dream becomes a nightmare. And as a bivocational pastor, I've learned that it's developing the team. Moses parted the Red Sea with his staff. And so one of the biggest things that I've had to learn in this last season of being at Pleasant View is to build the staff, to build the team, invest in the team, spend the finances and the resources in the team. There's many times I've had to cut my own sandwich in a sense, to make sure that team members eat, or they see me sacrifice, because I want them there to be a part. And so that's the biggest thing of bivocational pastors. You're not crazy, but sometimes you're going to feel like it. You got to learn boundaries. You got to learn family expectations. You got to learn how to manage your calendar. I'm even working now on getting better in my health, because you can't pastor, teach, and do all of these things that God has called you to and gifted you to without being present. And that's in good spirit and good health. You need to have your resources in check, because if you're not budgeting well, you can throw things out of balance. And as a pastor and as bivocational, you got to be good stewards over your resources and your funds that God has given you. So, yeah, I'm an oddball. I used to be a workaholic, but God is helping me calibrate those things and get them back in order. But I love being a bivocational pastor.
That's good. Well, I won't insult you by calling you bivocational anymore. I will call you what I used to refer to myself frequently, and that is I used to say I was tri or quad vocational,
Right.
because that's exactly, I mean, I was doing other things. At one time, I had a photography business I owned, and
Yeah.
I mean, there were just a lot of things going on. But yeah, there were times where I had as many as 4 jobs while I was planting or pastoring, a church at that point. So
Yeah.
let's take another kind of right turn here. Do you have any favorite sayings or favorite quotes that you use with your church to kind of motivate them, excite them for ministry?
One of my favorite quotes is serve right and be polite.
Okay, say that again.
Serve right, serve right, and be polite.
All right, unpack that for us. Talk to us a little bit of
So
why.
serve right means having a spirit of excellence, giving God your best, trying to do ministry as a professional, as at the highest point of your capabilities, uh, doing things right, not having a lackadaisical or lazy method, or you're going to take shortcuts. No, let's serve right. Let's give God our best. You know, the scripture tells us to present our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable. That key word, acceptable. Some things God doesn't accept. So let's not give God anything less than what's right. So let's do it right. Let's create the systems. Let's create the strategies. Let's create a plan, and let's do this right as best as we possibly can. If we need to learn more, if we need to experience more, if we need to see what others are doing, let's serve right. But then the biggest thing is, let's be polite. I can't tell you how many people miss the opportunity of ministry because they're nasty. They don't know how to be friendly. They don't know how to treat people. I mean, just being polite can go a long way. Now, just because you're polite, don't do the job wrong. Don't spill coffee and you're so nice about cleaning it up. Do some things as best as you possibly can. So that's my statement. One of them: serve right and be polite. Let's do it
Yeah,
right. Let's be polite.
yeah, that's great, and definitely in the climate that our world seems to continue to gravitate toward, where people are unkind, even in social media and stuff. Used to,
Yeah.
social media was kind of like, well, that's fun, and we're keeping up with people, but now it's like you want to duck and run. Because it can get so volatile at times. Well, look, we need to wrap up, but I want to kind of ask you as we're closing today. Our 1-at-1 live viewers are, many of them are they're longtime supporters of our foundation. They've donated, they've supported in prayer and finances over the years. Many of them probably had something to do with the grant that your church got back in 2012 because they were giving even then, and other churches that we're helping even now. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, if you were to ask people to pray for you, pray for Pleasant View as you continue to seek to revitalize, what kind of prayer requests would you ask of our folks?
Absolutely. Well, before I ask them to pray over some specific areas, I want to tell all of the New Work Foundation past donors and continual donors and future donors, thank you. Your generosity from your heart has literally expanded the kingdom. And I'm so honored that the New Work Foundation works with pastors, screen pastors, put systems and things in place to help the ministry grow. And your giving has literally increased heaven's attendance. And so I want to say thank you. And I want to encourage you to continue to do so, because you never know whose life is on the line. And so thank you. And for those who would love to join in prayer, my prayer desire for Pleasant View is that we will continue to impact families. that we will continue to be able to reach families, disciple families, and equip them with their knowledge and their relationship with God to do effective ministry, and to make sure that heaven is growing, because people want to go there. And so I ask you for your prayers in that we continue to serve families. We Pleasantview started as a family church, and we're making sure we're shifting to make sure that we serve families and we disciple families in Jesus' name.
Yeah, that's great. And I sure appreciate that. I just hope that all of our One at One Live viewers today have found this discussion with you, Pastor Derwin, to be of value. It's been so encouraging to me to hear some of your story, just a little bit, but to hear how you're leading Pleasant View, and the excitement that you have for ministry that's going on right there. I hope all of our viewers will take just a moment and make sure and subscribe or like this video and like our page. So you'll get notified of other interviews as we do them for One at One Live on Tuesdays, or other stories that we tell about church planters as well. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Pastor Derwin, thank you again for joining us. We are so glad you've been with us today. And for all of our New Work Foundation and all that we're trying to do to help resource new churches for healthy beginnings, I want to thank you. I'm Bobby Gilstrap for the New Work Foundation.